Hello, entrepreneurs, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to go over Calendly and how to set it up like a pro. I did this video, I think, a year ago. It's one of my best performing videos, and I thought that I would redo this video, go over a couple more features, and answer some questions that I got in the comments. So without further ado, here we go. I'm going to jump right into it. Now, keep in mind that I'm just going to go through from top to bottom. I'm going to go over as much as I can. The video is going to be kind of long, so if you need to, we're going to break it up into chapters, and you'll be able to go to the specific spot that you want. So, hopefully you can watch to the end and get some good ideas. But this is how I set it up, and everything else that I talked about is just like things that I would do if I were to set it up that way. Because I don't use Calendly for exactly every feature that it has, right? And I think it would be very hard to do so. I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. Okay, so I shared my screen, and here is Calendly. If you don't know, okay, so I shared my screen, and here's Calendly. Signing up for Calendly is obviously very easy. You're going to sign up with hopefully Google, Microsoft, whatever it might be. You can sign up with an email, and you can get started. Calendly has a few different pricing options, and obviously, if you have a bigger team, you can get going with the team section. Standard is obviously only $10 for yourself a month, and then the free version, it gets you some features, but it doesn't get you everything. I definitely highly recommend just the standard or teams to get going. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do when you get inside of Calendly is you're going to want to set up your settings. So I'm going to move my big head here, and I'm going to jump down into profile, and we're going to set things up. So uploading your profile picture is very important. Having something nice and professional, definitely something you want to do, and having your name clear, concise, no nicknames, things like that. Your welcome message. This could be, funny, sarcastic like myself, whatever you want it to be, okay? So I'm not going to get too much into it, but this is where you're going to set up your time zone, your profile, all this kind of stuff. Now, the most important part is the calendar sync. Now, the calendar sync is where you're going to be able to hook up. So if you've signed in with Google already, or, Microsoft or something like that, you should already have your one calendar ready to go here. Now, what happens is sometimes you have more than one email, one calendar. You're pulling your availability from maybe multiple different calendars. A lot of my clients have like their main calendar, like maybe their personal calendar where they put their life events on there. And then they have another calendar that's like work, which is like business meetings and all that kind of stuff. So what you can do here is you can actually add another calendar. And when you add that other calendar, you can come down here and check for conflicts and add it to a different calendar if you want to. So if you add a different calendar here, you can come down and you can add another one here. You can see that I have a couple different calendars associated to this. Now, when you click it on there, it's going to check for conflicts. So if you have an appointment on one calendar and that's not on your main calendar, it's going to check and say, hey, I can't book at that time, if that makes sense. So checking for conflicts, this is huge, right? Because then you can manage multiple different calendars and availabilities without having to, jump into Zapier and blocking off and all this kind of stuff. You can just have Calendly do it for you, okay? So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things. And customizing your link is definitely a good idea as well. So it could be like your business, Social Aim Solutions is one of my businesses, or it could be Nurture to Profit, which is another one of my businesses. It's available, save changes. Here we go. Okay, so now my Calendly is branded. So I'm going to go back home, and here are the events. This is where you're going to set up your events. Now, there's a number of different events that you can do. I have a favorite, and we're going to go over that one first, I think. Actually, we'll go over it second. 4 different types of events, main events: one-on-one, group, collective, round robin. So one-on-one is very self-explanatory. You can have one-on-one with someone. It'd be yourself and whoever the invitee is, okay? Group, this would be you have one host with a group of invitees. So for example, where this is really good is if you're doing like a class, right? Say you're teaching how to set up Calendly like a pro. I would invite like, say, 5 or 6 other people. They would all be able to choose a time that would work. Say, for example, I open up the availability for weekly at a specific time. People can join that time and be able to show up at that time, if that makes sense. Collective, it'd be more than one host. Now, I've got this question before so if you have more than one host, what's it going to do is obviously pull the availability from multiple hosts, and it's going to have the invitee be able to join in. So this would be good if, like, say, for example, you're an accountant or something like that, and on the call, you have the invitee coming, but you have maybe the bookkeeper there, and then you have like an accountant there, and then you have the salesperson. I don't know, I'm just making this up, but again, that would be another version. Round robin, this is my favorite because I do a lot of integration and integrating and setting up for coaching offers. And so round robin is where you can have multiple different hosts or salespeople. And what it does is it goes out and finds the best availabilities, and the invitee can pick one of those, and it'll round robin it to those particular hosts. So why I really like this is because you can like throttle the priority. So you could have 3 salespeople. Say you have one who's a killer and a veteran, he can have the highest priority. You can have another person that has a high priority, and then you can have a new guy that has low priority because he's still learning, right? And then that way it'll prioritize those 2 veteran salespeople, and then the other guy will get appointments, but not as many, right? Until he's ready to go up a little bit more, if that makes sense. So the other ways that you can meet is obviously one-on-one and a meeting poll. Meeting polls are kind of cool as if like no one can decide on a time. You can just put out a couple different times that you have available, and then they can choose. One-off meetings is like ad hoc, where you can just say, here, I'm having a meeting, let's go. Cool. All right, so I'm going to go into round robin. Why I go into round robin and why I set up round robin first off is because it works the same as a one-on-one, right? So you can just add yourself with the highest priority and just you on there, okay? And why I like that is because if, for example, I put my Calendly on a website or a funnel or somewhere, and I'm the one taking the calls, later on, if I add someone to my team, I can just add them to the round robin. I don't have to go and change the one-on-one link or the embedding and all that kind of stuff on a whole bunch of different pages and areas and places. I can just simply add someone to the round robin, and it's already set up. So why I don't like going over one-on-one is because round robin basically does the same thing. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments if you want. I just like to do it. So we're going to go over round robin. So the name of your event, obviously super important, but usually people do something along the lines of like, strategy session with, and we can do like, business name. Okay. Now the brackets is just because I don't have a business name, and you can do whatever you want with this. The duration is very important. So what is the duration that the customer or the invitee is going to see? Now I always have a duration that the customer sees, and then I have buffers that make the call longer. So my most common is a 45-minute meeting, but I make it up to an hour. Why? Because everyone goes over. If you give someone 45 minutes, they'll take 50, right? Always. So I always say 45 minutes, but I give an hour, but I don't tell the invitee that. So at 45 minutes and you're going longer, sometimes they like, wow, you're giving me a lot of extra value. This is awesome. Thank you so much. So the hosts that you want to add in here is just yourself. Now, if you had other people in here, then you could add those people into the round robin, if that makes sense, right? So add round robin host to a pool. So you could add, a different person. Oops. I hate how it does that. Anyways, you could just add them here, and you could add another person, and then that would obviously increase the availability, if that makes sense. So now where are we going to meet? Usually I always do Zoom, and I'll integrate my Zoom account with this, and we'll be good to go. Now, the other thing is I think I'm already added, so we're good to go. I'm going to hit continue and see what this next page looks like. Okay. Now we're in here, we can see a little bit of the availability that's starting. We can see that the name, we can see it's 45 minutes. We can see that it's going to be going over Zoom. Cool. Hosts and invitees, we got one host will always attend and one host from the round robin pool. So round robin settings, this is where if, for example, you want to max the invitee to have the best possible appointment times, you're going to maximize the availability. So a host with the best availability is going to get the most calls, if that makes sense. Usually the fairest way to do it. Now, if you, for example, have like a bunch of CSMs and they are, community managers and client success managers, and you want them to all have the exact same amount of appointments, you could optimize for equal distribution, right? But that's up to you. So this is where you can optimize for that. This is what I was saying before, is like you can optimize for availability, or you can give them more priority. So you can give myself the most priority or the lowest. There's the 4 options, right? So I'm going to do that. Now, if an invitee reschedules, this is very important. Reassign through the round robin is usually the best way to do this, because a lot of times it's either the closer or someone rescheduling, or it's just nice to have the best availability again. Now, if you don't want that, you can just make sure that they can reschedule only with you again, right? So a lot of times I have offers that's what we do. We hit apply. There we go. Save and close. Okay, so event details, we already went over this, right? Title, duration, all of this. Hosts and invitees, we have that. Scheduling settings. Now, this is very important. Date range is super important. Why? Because the longer you make it, the less likely people are going to show up. Okay. My max is always 10 days. I normally never make it past 10 days. And a lot of times I'm doing actually just 7 days, 7 days in the future. Why? Because I have such a higher no-show rate when people are not actually booking past 10 days or even 7 days. Okay. Now, there's a couple different things here. Within a certain date range, you could essentially have a date range where if like you're only going to be doing like an event for the next 3 weeks, you could do something along those lines, or you can do indefinitely into the future. I always choose at least 7 days in the future. I don't even know what I'm doing next week. So I always do like 7 days. That's it. Okay. Available hours, set hours by host, use same hours for all hosts. So I let the hosts, right? Like the closers or yourself, I always make sure that they have their hours set. So you can see that, I'm weekdays 9 to 5. Mark is pretty much every day from 1 till 5, if that makes sense. Now, this takes into account their time zone as well. You see Eastern and Pacific, right? Now, this is where it gets pretty interesting. This is where I really like it. So event limits. So buffer time, none. After event, I do 15 minutes. So what that does is it allows me to have a 45-minute meeting, and I've got a 15-minute buffer on the end, which means I have 60 minutes, right? Minimum notice, I always make sure that I have about an 8-hour notice, 6 to 8 hour notice, because I don't really like same-day appointments. Why? Because I pretty much wake up in the morning, I already have my day planned, right? I don't really want these ad hoc appointments in there. It kind of messes with things, and sometimes I have the luxury of doing that. Some people don't have the luxury of doing that. So you can set that to what you want. If you have a daily limit on how many appointments you want to take, you can set that there. Use invitees time zone display. I always let them automatically detect their time zone. Why? Because sometimes like if you have people that are traveling or doing, and they're in multiple time zones, it's best to just use what time zone they're in and not mess around. But if you have like a brick and mortar and you're booking appointments like right there in the office, then you could just set it to your time zone. Start time increments. So this is very important. If we're going to be doing the 45-minute appointment with 15-minute buffer, I always like to do it on 60-minute, right? You can do it on the 30-minute as well, which means they're going to start every 30 minutes, which is really nice because like every half hour, the half an hour slot. So you're going to be on the double zeros or going to be on the 3-0s, and then it's going to go to the next 3-0 for the next appointment. Otherwise, you're going to have a half an hour gap if you do it that way. If you do the 60-minute, that way they're always going to be on the hour. That's, again, it's up to you how you want to do that. I like on the hour. Save and close. Okay, so booking page options. This is the next one. So this is if you have questions you want to ask, right? So name and email. I always like to edit this one, and I like to, first name and last name, I like to kind of have them a little separated. Sometimes it adds a little bit of friction. So it's up to you. Name is always way easier because people just type in their whole name. Separating it's kind of nice because then when you're putting it into your CRM, you don't have to run any specific features. If you're running Go High Level like I am, then it'll automatically detect it for you. Autofill invitee name, all this kind of stuff. When they booked a prior appointment with you, I always turn that on. It's kind of like a sticky contact. So if they booked an appointment with you before, you can check that on, and then it'll autofill them so they don't have to keep filling out their information. Name and email, allow invitees to add guests. It's up to you. Usually I say no, and here we go. So question 1, I usually always have question 1 as a phone number, required, and then I say in here, I go, best phone number. And then I hit done. So there we go. That's the first question. The next question is, how did you hear about us? ? And it could be one line, or you could just do multiple lines, require, done. Right? So now when someone books an appointment, they're going to have to do name, email, phone, and they're going to have to say, how did you hear about us? Now, if you wanted certain, questions such as like, what's your Instagram handle, or what's your website, or whatever service you're providing. Say, for example, you're an accountant. You're going to ask maybe, what sort of tax planning? Do you want tax strategy? Do you want tax returns? What do you want, right? You could ask a number of different questions inside of there. Now, the number of different questions you can ask, right? There's one line, multiple lines, and phone number. We already went over those. Radio buttons. It's kind of nice because then they just have buttons. So this is a radio button question, okay? And I can make it required, and then I can go yes, no, maybe so. Oops. And then there we go. And done. Now, the cool thing about this, and I can show you if we go to view it later. Let me just take a look actually now. Let's go look. Okay, so I have to finish this first before I can view it. I'm going to get into another one. Let's go and look at checkboxes. This is a text box. question. Oops. Yes. No. Maybe. So, required. Or I'm going to just make this one not required. Done. And then we'll add one more question, and this one will be the dropdown. Dropdowns are cleaner, right? So this is a dropdown question. And then I'll make this one required and be like, no, yes, maybe. So don't know why I did that, but there we go. And we're hit done. Cool. So if you want to collect payment on the form, so this is really good if like you have a 15-minute or 30-minute consultation and you charge $30 for it, you could hook up Stripe or something along those lines and do that there. After booking, this is a really cool feature. So you can display the Calendly confirmation page, which when they book, it goes to like success. You have booked your appointment, and it gives them information, add to calendar, all this kind of stuff. Now, I always redirect to an external site, which is like funnel, right? Like a funnel thank you page. And on that thank you page, you can add in custom parameters like thanks, first name, and then you can add in, their details if you want. 99% sure you can pass through parameters, like UTM parameters. I've done it before, so I don't think anything's changed. I'm not currently doing it. But when you redirect to an external site, it's nice because then you can tell like Facebook pixels or advertising pixels or something along those lines that you can go, hey, this person actually booked an appointment, right? And then that way you can add them to a custom audience for advertising, all this kind of stuff. It's a really nice feature. But for now, we're just going to do display. Links on, schedule another event, off. So if you want to have if you want to add a custom link. So for example, this would be like if you have like a coaching offer, okay? And someone's booking their onboarding call for the coaching. You could have a link on here that takes them to like a portal or their course or the membership site. Say for example, you're using circle.so, you could have a link to take them to Circle, right? So you could do that. You could do a couple different things with that. It'd be kind of cool to do that. So I'm gonna hit save and close. Okay, so let's quickly go take a look at this. I copied the link. I'm just gonna go open this up quick. And we're going to go into here and we're going to go next. Okay, so the name, the email, the phone number. How did you hear about us? This is the radio button. Okay, cool. This is a text box, right? So you can obviously select multiple. This one, I can only select one. And then the drop down, I can only select one as well. It looks a little bit cleaner, right? But it's up to you how you want it to see, right? Sometimes just having all the questions out front is nice, less friction. Sometimes this is just looks cleaner. And there you go. So now I can go ahead and schedule my appointment. Moving on, communications. So this is where everyone really doesn't take advantage of this. And today's age right now with A2P, 10DLC, and all this compliance and all this kind of stuff, it's really nice that Calendly just sends out the text messages and stuff for you. So I always like to just have them do it, right? So if you have a CRM with A2P, 10DLC, and all this kind of stuff set up and your numbers are good to go, then you're good, right? But if you don't, then you can just use this. I use it regardless because it's already included. I'm not really paying anything extra for it. And I have many clients that we just send out the reminders ourselves. Why? Because when they respond and all that kind of stuff, it's just nice to have a familiar number and communication. So let's go into this. So calendar invitation immediately after booking. So immediately after booking, okay? So invitations come from, doesn't matter, like obviously with who we're booking it for, what round robin, it's going to come from the person in which the host, if that makes sense, right? So I actually switched this to an email confirmation instead of a calendar invite because it's going to send a calendar invite anyways, right? So host email address. So the reply to is going to be the host email address. And the subject line is going to be already filled out and the body is going to be filled out. And what I really like about this is that when someone books a call, it's going to send that email automatically and it's still going to add it to their calendar, if that makes sense. Now, you can send a calendar invite as well, which is basically the exact same thing. So it's up to you. I would play around with this and see which one you like the best. Okay, email reminders. Now, the email reminders, it's up to you. I tend to just always do, like, especially like on communication that like we really don't need it coming from my email address. I like to save my domain authority and my reputation and all this kind of stuff and just send it from Calendly. So I would just do the no reply. Now, this is the meat and potatoes down here. So you can send up to 3 notifications. So what I'll do is I'll send out one 48, 24, and then I'll send out one that's 12 hours. So we can turn that on. It's save and close. So what that means is you're going to have email reminders 48, 24, and 12 hours out. Now, if you want to, you can come in here and you can add in a different message. You can come in here and use the questions that they answered, you can put their answers in there if you want to, right? So it's up to you how you want to do this, but it's nice to just use their, their invitee full name or just their first name, or use your team member name or something like that, right? But they already kind of do it for you here. So it's kind of nice. Cancellation policy. This would be like, if you want to, it's always nice to have something like, we accept one cancellation. After that, you will not be able to book an appointment again. And we just add that in there for scarcity and just making sure that people try and show up and things like that, right? Text message. So edit. Now, this one's pretty easy. We're just going to send a text message saying, hey, you have an appointment. And what I like doing is the same sort of cadence is I will send out something. Normally what I'll do is I'll do a little bit off, if that makes sense. So it'll be like an email, and then so that's 48. So I'll do something like, 47. So they'll get it just before the email. And then maybe 24, we'll do 23. And then I always do this one 2 hours before, and I turn this on. So why do I do it 2 hours before? I find that like if you do it any earlier than that, it's always too early, right? And you're texting them too early and they get angry. I've sent a lot of messages. I've set up a lot of these, and I just find that like if you're just sending out these right before the meeting, usually it's more effective. Again, there is no right or wrong, really. There's just sometimes it works better for other people. Okay. So that's pretty much how I set up Calendly for a round robin. Now, there's obviously a ton of other things like workflows and all this kind of stuff that you can add to this, but we're just not going to get into that right this second in regards to like that particular one. So once we've done it, what we can do now is we can make sure that it's on. And now what we can do as well is we can view the booking page, which is just going to be, your booking page. Hopefully you have a logo and all this kind of stuff that you're going to add in there. Now, sharing, this is where it's going to be nice. So you can share a link, right? Add times to an email, which is really nice because you could add this. You could go like, hey, I want all these times for tomorrow, hit continue, and you can basically copy times to a clipboard and put this into an email. Really nice. Or add to your website. Now, a couple different options for adding to your website. There's an inline embed, which is adding it to your site. Pop-up, which add a floating button that opens a pop-up. So it could be just floating on your website, or a pop-up text, add text link that opens a pop-up. So it's up to you how you want to do it. Like, again, it depends on where you're going to, like, usually this one here, the pop-up widget is like kind of like a chat widget on the bottom of the page. And then the pop-up text would be like more of like a text that's like inline, like inside of your website where they can click on it and then it opens it up. So it depends on your site and how you have it set up, but you can play around with it and you can do what you want with that. Okay, cool. So if, for example, I want to create just take a look here. So there is the ability to create a team. Now, I'm not going to create a team on here, but what you can do is you can actually Okay, so the next thing is like creating a team. So you can see how this has been like obviously shared with me, but if you come into Admin Center, your team, and you can view your team. So the cool thing is if you go view, I have a couple different, people, and this is usually me just playing around and testing, but you can add more people to your account. Obviously those would be paid seats. And then when you're grouping them together, there could be like management, there could be sales, there could be all that kind of stuff. So it depends on how you're running. And, usually there's like a sales team or a marketing team or onboarding or something like that, right? Customer service or something like that. So it's up to you how you want to set up your teams, but then you can add people to those particular teams. And when you set up your round robin and stuff, it'd be people in those teams. Workflows, sort of redundant in a sense. So what I showed you earlier with the communication, email reminders to invitee. Now, where this is really useful is if you have multiple events and you have one workflow, you could add all the communication to that one workflow, and you don't have to go into each event and change those emails, if that makes sense. So it's nice to make a workflow there. However, I don't edit anything, so just to toggle it on. But if you do edit something, then you can create it here. Email reminder to host. So if you want emails or text messages, these two, if you want those to go out to the host to remind them that they have an appointment or something like that, there you go. You could do that. You can email a feedback survey, send a thank you email. What else is there? There's a ton of different things in here. Text message, there's reminders, there's all this stuff. Text follow-up. So the follow-up would be like after you had an appointment or something like that, it would send them a text and say, how did the appointment go? What are you thinking? It adds a little bit there. Text invitee. So this one's really important. We set up this one all the time. So this one here is like text invitee to. This is just basically like if you have a setter, for example, on your team. So what we would do is we would say, hey, for this workflow here, apply, which is the workflow we just set up, right? 1 hour before the event starts. So you notice how we send a 2-hour text message, right? We could swap those and do this at 2 hours and then the reminder at 1 hour, right? So it's up to you. And then this is going to just send a text message that's going to say, to confirm, click this link. And what it's going to do is like on your dashboard, like on your Calendly dashboard, it's going to say confirmed on it, right? And it's going to be nice because then you can have people that like, hey, I noticed you didn't confirm your appointment. The other thing is we do it usually right before the call, but I do have some clients that we do it the night before. So the day before, I would say like 12 hours before. So if it's like, their appointment's at 4 p.m., the previous day, we'll send a thing, hey, your appointment's in 24 hours, or not 12 hours, 24 hours, please confirm. You can add multiple other action steps to this if you want to. It's kind of like Zapier, and then you hit save. There we go, got it. So we can go back into event types now, and we can come into here. And we can go to communications now, and you can see that this already has that workflow. I don't have to go and add it again. I already added it, if that makes sense, right? So it's already there. Now, like I said before, is like if I'm doing this 1 hour prior, right, I could change this text message reminder to a different time, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to get into the more crazy stuff. I can do if people like this video and they want more, then I can do that. Analytics, this is kind of self-explanatory, but it's nice to know, how many events have been completed, how many were rescheduled, how many were canceled. This is super important for a team and understanding how the appointments are going and all that, and understanding all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, contacts, this would be a nice way for you to come in and see all of your contacts, maybe if you have favorites and all that. Maybe you have your favorites would be your clients and stuff like that. So if you have like a list of clients, they get favorites or something, current clients, then you could just come in here and you could book a meeting or share availability to them. And, there you go, right? It's kind of a nice way of just, saving you time. And yeah, integrations and apps. This is probably the last thing I'll get into. Calendly for Chrome is something I highly recommend because up at the top here, what you can do is you can just have an extension. You click on it after you signed in, of course. You can click on it and you can make ad hoc appointments. You can send your links to people and it's just right up there and it's so nice and easy and you're good to go. So obviously they have the same thing for, Edge and Firefox, and then Gmail for workflows, right? So that's kind of nice. Google Calendar. I definitely highly recommend having Calendly for your Google Calendar. And yeah, other than that, the Meta Pixel and all that, if like you want to send conversion events back to Meta, Facebook, and tell them, hey, I got an appointment, then that's probably a good idea. And then Slack is nice because then you can send notifications saying, hey, so-and-so booked an appointment, if that makes sense, right? And it's really nice to be able to have like a Slack channel message that pops up and says, hey, you got a new appointment. So there we go. I think I covered it all. I'm usually pretty relaxed with how I do tutorials and how I just kind of go through as if I was like setting it up myself. I don't have fancy slides and all that kind of stuff. But as always, if you like this video and you want to see more, or I missed something, or you're curious about something, please send me a comment and let me know what that is. If you want my team and me to set this kind of stuff up for you, then there should be a booking link in this description as well that you can book a spot on my calendar. If you want a Calendly alternative that is more inclusive of more features, we do have our own CRM with Nurture to Profit. It comes with like funnels, websites, bookings, all that kind of stuff. And all the features that we just went over are inside of there as well. And it's one charge rather than, having to connect multiple software. So it's kind of nice. So again, if you have any video ideas as well for me, please hook me up. And as always, give me a like, thumbs up, whatever you want. Give me some feedback. And I hope you have a great day. Cheers.